Catherine II of Russia. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and leave a like on the video. Now let's start. Catherine II of Russia, known as Catherine the Great, was not only one of the most influential rulers in history, but also one of the most enigmatic and fascinating figures of her time. Her private life was marked by passions, betrayals, ambitions, and an unshakable desire for power. Beyond her political and military successes, her story is also that of a woman who defied the norms of her time, surrounding herself with influential lovers and forming strategic relationships that marked her reign. Sophie Frederica Augusta of Anhalt-Zerbst was born in 1729 in the Kingdom of Prussia. From an early age, she displayed a lively intelligence and a strong character, which made her an ideal candidate for a political marriage. At 16, Tsarina Elizabeth of Russia chose her as a bride for her nephew and heir, Peter. For Sophia, the marriage represented an opportunity to leave behind her provincial life and become a major figure in one of the most powerful courts in Europe. Arriving in Russia, Sophia converted to Orthodox Christianity and took the name Catherine Alexeyevna. She quickly learned the Russian language and the customs of the country, trying to win the sympathy of the nobility and the people. But her biggest challenge was not cultural adaptation, but her husband. From the beginning, her marriage to Pietro was a disaster. He was immature, childish, more interested in his lead soldiers than in his wife. Catherine, on the contrary, had an ambitious vision of power and soon understood that, to survive at court, she had to create her own alliances. Peter's disinterest pushed Catherine to seek companionship in other men. Her first relationships were discreet, but over time she began to build a network of lovers who not only offered her affection, but also political support. One of the most influential early lovers was Sergei Saltykov, a nobleman with connections at court. It is said that her first son, the future Tsar Paul I, was actually the son of Saltykov and not of Peter III. As Peter drifted away from his duties, Catherine grew in influence. She spent hours in the library reading philosophy, history, and politics, preparing for what she knew would be her big break. In 1762, Peter ascended the throne upon the death of Tsarina Elizabeth. His reign was short and disastrous. An admirer of Prussia, he introduced unpopular reforms that alienated the nobility and the army. While Peter made mistakes, Catherine consolidated her network of support. Her then-lover, Grigory Orlov, together with his brothers, persuaded the Imperial Guard to support Catherine in a coup. On July 6th of the same year, while Peter was in his summer residence, Catherine proclaimed herself empress with the support of the army. Peter was arrested and forced to abdicate. A few days later, he died under suspicious circumstances. Although Catherine always denied having ordered his assassination, with that bold gesture she became the sole ruler of Russia, starting a new era of absolute power. But her story was far from over. Having consolidated her throne, Catherine the Great did not limit herself to governing, but also built an intense and passionate private life. Her reign was marked by a series of influential lovers, each with a role in the court. In politics and in her personal life, Catherine knew how to combine pleasure and strategy, using her relationships to strengthen her power and maintain her dominion over the empire. One of the first and most important was Grigory Orlov. More than just a romantic partner, he was a key ally in the coup. Catherine was deeply in love with him and for years considered marrying him in secret. However, Orlov lost his charm for the empress. His infidelities and excessive ambitions deteriorated the relationship. Catherine pushed him away and looked for a new favorite. Of all her lovers, it is said that her most intense relationship was with Grigory Potemkin. Charismatic, ambitious, gifted with a brilliant mind, he was not only her lover, but also her trusted advisor and military strategist. Together they shared a grandiose vision for Russia. Potemkin was the advocate of expansion towards the south, leading the annexation of Crimea and consolidating Russian rule over the Black Sea. Catherine and Potemkin are believed to have married in secret, although it was never made public. Despite the cooling of their romantic relationship, they remained political allies until his death. After Potemkin, Catherine continued to surround herself with young lovers, to whom she bestowed titles, riches, and palaces. Some of the most famous were Alexander Lanskoy, Ivan Rimsky-Korsakov, and Plato Zubov. They were not only affectionate companions, but also trusted men at court. Catherine enjoyed their company and often employed them as intermediaries in affairs of state. Although her love life was no more promiscuous than that of many of her male predecessors, her continued relationships with much younger men attracted criticism and gossip. Her enemies accused her of living a licentious life, but Catherine never allowed herself to be influenced by public opinion. Her control over power was absolute, and she did not allow interference in her private life. Throughout her life, she was the target of many malicious rumors. She was said to have an insatiable appetite for men, to manipulate them to her advantage, and to choose army officers to turn into lovers. But the most infamous gossip emerged after her death: the legend that she died during a sexual act with a horse. This story, completely false, was created by her enemies to discredit her and reduce her greatness to a scandal, then also taken up by the Bolsheviks against the monarchy. The reality is that Catherine was a woman who knew how to manage her private life with the same skill with which she governed an empire. She did not allow the morality of the time to limit her, and she lived by her own rules. Despite his many relationships, his true passion was always Russia. Until the last day of his life, he worked on reforms, promoted education, and expanded the borders of his empire. On November 5, 1796, she suffered a stroke in her palace. She was found unconscious in the bathroom and died the following day. Her son, Paul I, who had always held a grudge against her, ascended the throne and quickly attempted to erase part of her legacy. Yet Catherine the Great's mark on Russian history remains indelible. She transformed a backward country into a European power, promoted art and education, and above all, ruled with absolute power like no other woman of her time. That's all for today, and what do you think of Catherine II of Russia? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. See you next time. Bye.